Hey everybody, this is JDGaming back today with a deck profile of my Junk Doppel deck. This is a long time in the making. It took a while for us to get enough Link monsters to really warrant looking at this strategy, and of course very soon once we receive Crystron Needlefiber sometime on the horizon, we should be able to further evolve this strategy. But I actually found out to my surprise, with the handful of Link monsters that we do have right now, we can actually use Ultimaya Tzolkin again to kind of tie up our common classic plays of Hyper Librarian and other level 5 Synchro summons, like our 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝗍 through, of course, our main play, the bread and butter combo of Junk Synchron and Doppel Warrior. On top of that, I am going to be tying together a card that I personally like using called Clear Effector. This is something that came out in 𝗫𝗿𝐸𝐸𝗍 about a year ago, something that I use in my kind of Junk Synchron plant deck about a year ago, so that concept is going to come in here as well. And if you've never seen that card before, don't worry, this is a Let's build as always, so I'll be going through all of my reasonings and explanations of card choices here, so it'll be a good primer on the strategy in case you want a refresher or just a quick introduction to the strategy itself. If you want to just see the alphabetical profile, you can go ahead and click the timestamp in the description box. I always leave that table of contents there so you can go through and check out the individual sections, or just the typical alphabetical profile you usually see on other channels. But then if you have any questions remaining afterwards, feel free to go ahead and check out the middle portion of the video, where hopefully I did this deck justice in explaining what it's able to do. So without further ado, let's build Junk Doppel. The first step of building any deck is to establish the theme and then to build the deck's core. And here we are building Junk Doppel, which of course is the namesake of these two cards here. So Junk Synchron is a famous guy from 5Ds. Basically, Yusei's monster lets you go normal summon this guy and revive a level 2 or lower monster from your graveyard, negate its effects on the field, but that's totally fine because it combos perfectly with the level 2 Doppel Warrior who has 2 abilities. If it's used as a synchro material through something like this, you're able to spawn 2 tokens that are essentially halves of Doppel Warrior, so it forms its doppelganger, becoming 2 level 1 400 attack tuner monsters, or token monsters. And then on top of that, if you happen to revive anything from your graveyard, maybe through Junk Synchron, maybe through the plants that we'll get to later in this deck profile, the Doppel Warrior can actually throw himself onto the board from your hand, which makes it very easy to add on to your synchro summons by 2 levels, or go for a link play or something before you go for your synchro summon. So lots of abilities that you're able to take advantage of. Doppel Warrior is essentially going to be your dandelion for this deck, and Junk Synchron is just a really accessible monster that'll help get a lot of your key plays rolling. To make sure that you get these guys consistently, we'll be running 3 copies of Tuning, which basically lets you go and add a Synchron Tuner monster from your deck to your hand, and then afterwards you mill 1 card, so that's actually helpful. It might get something in your graveyard that Junk Synchron can revive, or might just come back on its own, which will trigger Doppel Warrior. And then 1 copy of Rhoda as well, because this thing can search all of these cards as opposed to Tuning only searching the Junk Synchron side. So with this thing, you can see there's a lot of ways here we're able to go for a level 5 Synchro summon using these cards. So what do we go for? Well, the staples, of course, would be TG Hyper Librarian and other level 5 Synchros. This thing lets you draw a card for every time a Synchro monster is Synchro summoned by either player while it's on the field. And although this card is semi-limited right now, and yeah, Link monsters make it so you kind of could go for multiple right now, I chose to only play 1 for space reasons because I wanted to go for 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝗍𝗶𝗹𝗮. So this is a tuner monster on top of being a synchro. It has the ability to synchro during your opponent's turn as a quick effect, so just like Formula Synchron, it has that quick effect to synchro summon, which is pretty cool. And on top of that, it has a level modulation ability, allowing you to send any Synchron monster, whether or not it's a tuner, and we'll get to why that's important later on, in order to go ahead and raise or lower this guy's level permanently while it's on the field by that amount, and you're able to essentially turn this guy into any level of tuner that you would like for your plays, which is just really, really cool. But the main reason you like these guys is you have an easy way to repeatedly and consistently summon level 5s, and you have a tuner and a non-tuner that are level 5 or higher of the same level, which lets us go for Ultimaya Tzolkin. So this guy has a protection effect while you control synchros. That's all cute and whatever, but you really use it for its effect. So if you're able to use a Link monster to open up a zone on top of the zone you summon Tzolkin into, you can set a spell or trap once per turn to trigger its ability, allowing you to summon big boss monsters like these. So these are dragons. We have Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend that can destroy things if you're going second, or Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon that can hinder your opponent if you're going first. And essentially, these guys are really easy monsters to bring out for free using Ultimaya Tzolkin when you're able to assemble a tuner monster and a non-tuner that are level 5 or higher. And this deck is just really well equipped to do that. Originally, I was thinking this deck might not be viable without Needlefiber, but Ultimaya Tzolkin, of all things, the card that demands multiple spaces from Link monsters, actually ended up being the glue that tied these level 5 synchro summons together for me, and I found out, hey, this is what I want to do with the theme. Again, this does have a protection effect, but realistically, nowadays I use that Tzolkin as a Link material, because although he's treated as a level 12 synchro monster, which was terrible for synchro summoning and 𝐫𝐶𝐸 summoning, Link summons are fair game. So turn Tzolkin into a Yugioh with your other cards, and you're able to continue comboing off after this point, which is absolutely nuts. The next group of monsters I want to introduce are the plant engines. So this all stems from the fact that we still have no Aromatherapy Jasmine, which means Lone Fire Blossom is still safely at 3. This of course lets us tutor out any number of monsters, including 𝐫𝐿𝐴 and Spore, which are some of the best tuners in the game because they're able to come back very easily. And on top of that, I like playing a single copy of World Carrot Weight Champion. So this guy basically is able to recur himself from the graveyard in exchange for a plant monster from your field or hand, which is quite nice as a level 4 monster, since you have 𝐫𝐿𝐴 and Spore that are level 1 tuner monsters, and 𝐫𝐿𝐴 actually comes back. You're actually able to combine it with the level 4 Carrot Weight Champion very easily to make a level 5 synchro, essentially tying back into that Junk Doppel central theme. On top of that, all these cards work really nicely with Foolish Burial, which put them in the graveyard instantly for plays, 1-for-1, which lets us bring out 𝐫𝐿𝐴 over Spore for 2 uses, and then Monster Reborn and Soul Charge are very powerful extenders that I usually consider as a package with these guys, because when you're able to use a Lone Fire Blossom again to get a monster that comes out twice, it just becomes really powerful. And when you have Soul Charge, you get to some of the nuttiest combos that this deck is able to produce. So these are just some of the things, pretty simple and self-explanatory for the most part. The most notable thing out of all this, I think, is the World Carrot Weight Champion, which is useful for those 5 plays here, so I do like going for that. But then this ties into the next engine that we're playing that's really crucial for this deck. Another reason Lone Fire Blossom is such a powerful card is that this card can turn into any plant, including our Predaplant engine. So if we go for 𝗫𝗿𝐸, we can pitch any monster from our hand. A lot of those candidates we just talked about are viable because they come back from the graveyard, and that gives us a 𝗫𝗿𝐸𝐸 Cobra in exchange, which will let us go and add a fusion spell directly to our hand. Here we are playing Brilliant Fusion, which will let us go and fusion summon our Gem-Knight Seraph Knight directly from our extra deck, from our deck as materials. And the cool thing with this card is just it ties everything together. So first of all, you have to realize this is a level 5 non-tuner. That means if you're able to put out a Link monster with 2 arrows, you bring out this and you synchro summon 1 time for that Excel Synchron. Or you go for something extra, like we'll talk about Quick Draw Synchron as a tech monster down the line. You're actually able to go ahead and summon your Tzolkin using this card. So it becomes directly viable as its level 5 non-tuner status. On top of that, you do get an additional normal summon. That's really critical in this strategy because Lone Fire Blossom eats up your normal summon. Predaplant 𝗫𝗿𝐸 would eat up your normal summon. Junk Synchron demands a normal summon for its effect. So having all of these things is normally a bad thing, but when you have easy access to Seraph Knight, that ends up mitigating that problem because you're able to get a normal summon for free that covers those abilities, and then you still have a normal summon to further extend your plays. And then the fact that it's an earth monster, I guess, I don't know, might be useful in some strategies. Sometimes you actually do use that for Mrs. Radiant, which could be useful, usually not in the combo that I'm thinking of. I'll show you a really cool combo down the line. The way we summon our Brilliant Fusion or Gem-Knight monster is through our pair of Garnets and then our Trick Clown, which gives us a free monster back. And then on top of that, not too much detail right now, I will show you again the combo at the end of the video, but I do like playing Thousand Blades along with the Trick Clown by using MX Saber Invoker. So big debate I had with this strategy was, where do we take it with 𝗍𝗏𝐻𝑆 Apprentice versus Mrs. Radiant for our Link monster? Because 𝗍𝗏𝐻𝑆 Apprentice is finally the card where you take a Lone Fire into an 𝗫𝗿𝐸𝐸 or directly into 𝗫𝗿𝐸𝐸, and that one card instantly becomes a Link 2 monster because it takes 2 darks. Finally, that niche was realized, and I was thinking, why would I use up a main deck slot for Thousand Blades and Invoker? But there are a few solid reasons. First of all, if we can afford those spots, because we have such easy access to Glow Up Bulb and we have Thousand Blades, we can take advantage of Naturia Beast extremely easily in this strategy. And in one of the combos I'll show you, the bread and butter combos, we'll actually go and summon Naturia Beast on top of our Crystal Wing from our Tzolkin play, which basically means we can shut down all of our opponent's Sky Strikers, reignites, and other means of destroying our board on top of having a Crystal Wing. So this is just an extra monster that we're able to play. Tons of extra power comes from these guys. I know the 𝗣𝗏𝐻𝐸's Apprentice is a very efficient light link engine, but this ends up giving us a lot more combo potential. So bear with me for now when I say that MX Saber Invoker and Thousand Blades proved itself to me. I was against it at first, and I realized, holy crap, this is just so good. So we are playing that. And then our link monster of choice then for our 2 arrows is Mrs. Radiant. It does have the ability to recycle one of your Earth monsters if it falls in battle, so you can recycle it or any other Earth guy. That doesn't come up so often because, as I'll show you in that combo, we're actually using this with Tzolkin and some free monsters to go for our Saryuja to extend our plays down the line. So that is the Predaplant engine. We'll go more into detail in a bit. And then to flesh out the main and extra deck, I just want to talk about some tech choices here. So first off, 1 copy of Clear Effector. So this is the guy I kind of introduced at the beginning. It's a level 2 non-tuner monster, perfectly fits with Junk Synchron, and its ability activates in the graveyard, because if it's sent to the graveyard for Synchro material, you draw 1 card, meaning even when you go for your Hyper Librarian before you have one established, you still draw a card to replace it, which is awesome. If you have a Librarian out, you draw an additional card, which is also awesome. So lots of free advantage you get with this card, which is nice. And on top of that, the Synchro monster you summon with this card cannot be destroyed by card effects, so your Hyper Librarian or whatever else will stick around a lot longer. This card is an easy tech at 1 because with the Brilliant Fusion engine, if you have a Junk Synchron already and some means of bringing out a Link monster, it's very much possible you can go Brilliant Fusion, send this as your light monster instead of Trick Clown, and now you can just go for combos right there. The Trick Clown engine does give a lot more consistency to the deck in case you didn't draw your Junk Synchron, so this is more of an option, but I do like what this card is able to produce in terms of draw power and just an invincible Synchro monster, so it's quite nice for that. Then on top of that, I like playing 3 additional cards that fit along with our Synchron theme between tuning and, for the last card here, for the Excel Synchron. So Quick Draw Synchron, as I mentioned, is a level 5 tuner monster. You could fetch it directly with tuning, summons itself to the field off of a free discard, which is awesome because now you have a free monster that's a level 5 tuner. So use this with your Seraph Knight, that's a Tzolkin right there. You could use that with a Hyper Librarian or whatever, that's a Tzolkin right there as well. So it smooths out that aspect of the deck, and on top of that, sending a card from your hand to grave is really good when you have Glow Up Bulb Spore, Jet Synchron, who's basically kind of like one of those plant tuners. Or any number of guys that you'd like to revive, like Clear Effector, Thousand Blades, Trick Clown, or the Doppel Warriors. So very nice one-of that gives you a lot of flexibility, so I really do love this card. And even in the weirdest scenarios, I've even like a tribute summon this guy, getting rid of like, I don't know, Seraph Knight or something else that's clogging me, and then I'm able to go and make plays if some awkward situation comes up. It's just one of those cards that really does a lot as a one-of because it's accessible, but it's able to do so much, it smooths out the bad scenarios. Jet Synchron has 2 abilities. The first one is, as I mentioned, you could discard a card from your hand in order to revive it as a level 1 tuner. Then, if it leaves the field because of that, you banish it. But the cool thing is, if you go and summon your Psyframe Lord Omega, which is very easily accessible through, Junk Synchron with a Seraph Knight will get you there. You're able to push this card back into your graveyard during your standby phase, which is a nice little bonus, or during the opponent's standby phase, I suppose. And then on top of that, as a mutually exclusive, you can choose one of these effects type of thing. If you happen to not revive it that turn, you can go ahead and search a Junk Synchron to your hand when it's used as a Synchro material, which does help keep resources up, but 99% of the time I'd say you're going to use that revival ability because it's just useful having the additional monster for a free climb, which usually results in a free draw. And then Synchron Explorer is not searchable by tuning because it's a non-tuner. It's an interesting ability, I suppose. Lets you normal summon it to then basically summon back a Synchron monster in your grave, so then one of these guys or Junk Synchron. So it's kind of like a backwards version of Junk Synchron where it is the non-tuner. So it does fit in the deck in that regard. But the main reason I play one of these things is if you run your 𝐫𝐸𝐸 with this guy, even though this isn't a tuner that can be searched with tuning, you can send it to the graveyard with the 𝐫𝐸𝐸. So let's say you ended up having this card in your deck and you have Junk Doppel combo. So you have Doppel Warrior in the grave, Junk Synchron brings it back, Synchro for 𝐫𝐸𝐸. Now you bring out 2 tokens. 𝐫𝐸𝐸 can then go ahead and send this card from the deck to the graveyard to boost its own level by this level. So it ends up becoming level 7 with all of these here. And then with the 2 tokens here, now you have 3 monsters that add up to level 9, 7 plus 2. And that lets us go for 𝗫𝐿𝐴 off of just the Junk Synchron. And that's an amazing play when you're going second and your opponent has an established board. So very much like that. Just the fact that Synchron Explorer is 𝗫𝐿𝐴 in this deck is amazing. You're already playing 𝐫𝐸𝐸 anyway. Synchron Explorer isn't terrible when you draw it because it's essentially Junk Synchron anyway, so I really do like the extra flexibility that you get when you're trying to go second and break your opponent's board. So those are the tech cards that I like to play. And then on top of that, to just smooth out the main, we play 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. This thing just helps dig into your combo pieces, so it really does help to recognize what it is that you're trying to do, and you know, this will help you decide what to banish, because obviously you have extra Predaplant cards you may not want. Those are the free banishes, but between Junk Warriors, Doppel Warriors, you might have to be a little more familiar with this deck, so play around with it, see what works in certain scenarios, and then you'll know, you know, what you have to get rid of. I can't tell you get rid of this or this because it really depends on the situation. And then 2 Called by the Grave. This thing's basically to stop all your opponent's hand traps because this is a combo focused deck. I didn't want to bog it down with Called by the Grave to counter my opponent and a bunch of hand traps because then you end up losing consistency in your own deck. So admittedly, especially without Crystron Needlefiber, this deck isn't the most competitive thing in the world, but it is a blast to play, and it will be more fun if you're able to stop your opponent's hindering cards with Called by the Grave. And then this card's a nice thing to have as just kind of like a pseudo trap, you know, since it's a quick play spell on top of your Nat Beast or your Crystal Wing play, or both. Because that is a viable option. And then the last 4 cards in the extra deck are simply the Underclock Taker. This is just part of a combo, and if nothing else, it's a generic Link 2 that lets you point down, so I like that. Why Proxy Dragon is not here is basically because it doesn't point down. Saryuja's in here. This is an amazing card, lets you draw cards, lets you fix your hand, and lets you special summon guys. And then the 300 boost is nice because then your Hyper Librarian goes up to an untouchable 27 and so on, so I do like that. And then the last 2 filler synchros are pretty much this guy at level 6, Starter's Charge Warrior. Just lets you draw a card right then and there. So if you use it with Clear Effector, that's a free draw. With Hyper Librarian, that's another draw. Lots of powerful things you're able to do. And if your opponent, I don't know, if you bait out their Scapegoat or something with, let's say, 𝗫𝐿𝐴 or whatever, you're able to go and pick off all their tokens because it can attack every special summon monster your opponent controls once each. So it's kind of useful for that, I suppose. There will be situations where that does come up, so realize it does have that second effect. And speaking of that, Black Rose Dragon's in here as well. Don't forget she has 2 abilities as well, so you're able to destroy the field if you'd like, which helps you fight if you're going second. It's very easy to bring out. Or you can go ahead and use the other ability. Since you're playing so many plants, banish any one of them from the grave to flip your opponent's defense monster into attack position and make its attack 0, which lets you do massive damage and potentially steal games. So do realize your cards do have extra abilities and take advantage of those. That's also one of the reasons why I like Underclock Taker so much, is because on top of providing us with an arrow, it's kind of like Black Rose Dragon in that it's an OTK enabler. Oh boy, first combo using this new mat here. So yeah, celebrating 2K low-key here with a new design. Essentially, this combo starts off with just these 2 cards, and it's access to these 2 cards that will let you do it, which gives you a lot of flexibility. That means you're able to use your Lone Fire Blossom as a wild card for either of these guys. You can use 1-for-1 to bring out Glow Up Bulb, because you just have to make sure that Glow Up Bulb does get both of its summons through a normal summon or special summon, and its revival effect. And then by the same token, Monster Born or even Soul Charge could work as well to revive a Lone Fire Blossom that would get you one of these guys, because then you can go ahead and bring out the other guy. So just to show how common this strategy actually does end up coming up. Essentially what you're doing here is, let's pretend we're going first and we drew terribly, right? So we have 2 dead spells and a dead monster on top of all of this. So what you end up doing here is you normal summon your Predaplant Ophrys Scorpio, send your dead monster to the graveyard here, and that will let us go and summon out our Predaplant Darlingtonia Cobra, which will let us add the actual Brilliant Fusion we will use to our hand. You know, oh wow, lovely hand here, right guys? From here, you're able to go and overlay with 2 level 3 monsters for the generic 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝑆 MX Saber Invoker, which will go ahead and now let us use its ability, detaching a material to special summon Heroic Challenger 𝐫𝗿𝗍𝗍𝗄 from our deck. This is an Earth and that's an Earth, so that means 2 Earth monsters. We get a free Link 2 on the field, which is Mrs. Radiant, and she points down diagonally, so now we have 2 arrows here, which is perfectly what we need. We activate Brilliant Fusion, sending here our Trick Clown, which is a light monster, along with Gemknight Garnet, and that lets us go and summon Gemknight Seraphknight in the middle zone here, and that's, I guess this zone doesn't necessarily matter, but I like doing this because of what's coming up, because I don't want to mess up the later stages. Anywho, we're able to go and trigger this, we take 1,000 points of damage, and because we did, we're able to bring back 1,000 Blades, and this is where the fun happens, guys. Extra normal summon to bring out 𝐫𝐿𝐵, or again, it could be Lone Fire, Monsterborn, 1/1, whatever wild card lets you get out to your 𝐫𝐿𝐵. And from here, we're going to make a level 5 Synchro Summon using our Trick Clown, and that lets us go for, whoops, I forgot to grab it here. We're going to grab that Accel Synchron, which is going to be summoned into that end zone right there. So, tuner, non-tuner, level 5s. We're not using the effect because if we use Accel Synchron's effect, we'll modify its a level, and we don't want that. We go for Ultimaya Tzolkin. Now we take one of our dead spell cards, and you know, one of these honestly could be a monster. It would still work for this because we just needed the 1 to discard for Ophrys. Set a card. Oh, we trigger Ultimaya Tzolkin. Now I get a free Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon onto the field, and I put it in the end zone. This is why I wanted to use the middle zone for this guy, because that will let me put this here. Now, I can mill a card from my deck, which will let me go and bring back my 𝐫𝐿𝐵, and there are 2 things I can do here. First, I could take Ultimaya Tzolkin and Mrs. Radiant. These are both effect monsters, so one branching possibility is turn 2 of those into a Underclock Taker, who now points down, and look, level 4 and level 1, tuner and non-tuner, they're Earths. I have a Naturia Beast, so now I have both of these guys on the field for sure, which is a good combo. But if I'm feeling extra ballsy, I can actually go ahead and instead of going for Underclock Taker here, use these 4 monsters. So yeah, Mrs. Radiant's going to be used as just a freebie monster here, just a Link 1, right? Just 1 monster. All 4 of these guys can be turned into Yugioh. So this is a call you have to make based on what's in your hand, because if, let's say, you were able to use Lone Fire Blossom and really deck thin by 3 more cards, and maybe you have a Lure of Darkness or something that lets you go into more cards from your hand, or you have a Monsterborn or Soul Charge, you're able to get into more cards that will potentially let you revive the pieces necessary for a Naturia Beast or other big play, and you can continue going from there. But even if you don't feel that confident, you end up with 1 card left, 1 card set, and this could be an Allure, could be a search card that will let you go and continue your plays. It could be something like a Called by the Grave to hinder your opponent's play further, but you have the option of going for these 2 controlling monsters. The issue is, if this doesn't stop your opponent and they get through, the Underclock Taker is a little bit more fragile as a Link monster, because now in your extra deck, the only Link monster is Yugioh, so you gotta weigh the pros and cons. If you're playing in like a more competitive type of scenario and you weren't, totally shut down by hand traps or whatever, you're able to go ahead and Nat Beast. Maybe that's gonna be worth it. Maybe that'll win you the game with Sky Strikers, especially in tandem with that. But this is a possible combo that I really want to show, because this is just like one of the biggest things you can do with this strategy on a consistent basis. If you watched the video in its entirety, thanks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing the creation of this deck as much as I did putting it together. And yeah, I know there are a lot of other combos here, so feel free to share your favorites down below if you're used to this type of a strategy, especially if you're Speedy Steve, or I guess you're Synchro Extremist now. Feel free to share your insights down below. I'd love to see your thoughts. So we'll go ahead with the main deck here. We have Clear Effector at 1, triple Doppel Warrior, 𝐫𝐿𝐵, a Heroic Challenger 𝐫𝗍𝗍𝗄, Jet Synchron, triple Junk Synchron, triple Lone Fire Blossom, a Performance Trick Clown, finally shiny. Then we got Darlingtonia Cobra and triple Ophrys Scorpio for Predaplants, a single Quick Draw Synchron for Tech, Spore, Synchron Explorer, and World Carrot Weight Champion. Then 2 Gemknight Garnet for our monsters. And for spells, we have triple Allure of Darkness, triple Brilliant Fusion, double Called by the Grave, Foolish Burial, Monster Reborn, 1/1, Reinforcement of the Army, Soul Charge, and triple tuning for a 40 card main deck. And then our extra deck here has Mrs. Radiant and Underclock Taker as Link 2s, and then a Saryuja at Link 4. Those are the only ones I played. Then we have, for level 5 monsters, Excel Synchron, Naturia Beast, and a single Hyper Librarian, despite the fact that, yeah, I know it's at 2. Then we got a Stardust Charge Warrior, excuse me, got blinded by that light there. Black Rose Dragon at 7. Then we got Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, Cyframe Lord Omega, and Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend at level 8. And then we got Trishula at 9, Tzolkin at undefined/12, and then we got MX Saber Invoker for our engine plays, and then Gem Knight Seraph Knight for our Brilliant Fusion plays. That's the end of this video, but there's plenty more where it came from. I invite you to explore the playlists on screen to see what else I have to offer, and if you really liked what you saw today, consider subscribing to JDGaming for more Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Thanks guys, this is JDGaming, hope you guys enjoyed as always, and I'll see you guys next time.